In this video, we're going to put floor pans in the 75 Chevy Nova. And you can buy reproduction pans for this car, but they're not exactly correct. And well, let's face it, they're a little bit pricey for this budget build. So what you're going to see here is I'm going to use a combination of some pans that I cut from two different junkyard cars, as well as using some scrap metal from the rotted trunk lid that we pulled off of this car. So if you're looking to go from pans that look like this to something more like this, you're going to want to sit back and watch this video. Enjoy. What you're looking at here is part of the passenger side floor pan, and this would be right at the firewall up above there. That would be where the air conditioning goes in on that firewall. So right here is the trans hump. But as you can see, we got some rot in here we're going to end up having to fix. And looking around the rest of the car, I see some other areas, such as the trans tunnel where they used to have a cable going for a floor shifter. That's all over in here on the driver's side floor. Looks like I can see the bottom side of the carpet. No telling what we got going on further down in there. And they used to have bucket seats in here. They did a great job of fitting those in and cut right through that floor support. So we're going to have to do some repairs there, both sides. So I've decided I'm going to start out with this piece that I got out of the junkyard. This is to repair that front part of the floor pan to the firewall area. I had already marked the area underneath the car here. I don't know how well you'll be able to see it. But I put some marks down here, what area I want to cut out. So I'm actually going to cut that area out first. Then I'll hold the replacement piece up in place, and then I'll make some markings on that, and then I'll cut it to fit. Alright, so there it is. Cut out the rot that we had in the car. Just used a angle grinder. It had a cutoff wheel in it, not much of it left there. It's not that needed that whole wheel to do this. It was just a used wheel. So here's my junkyard piece. So now it is just a matter of laying it on there, getting that pretty good, and then we'll outline this. And then, as always, I will cut a little bit wider than my line, just so I have a little bit to play with, so that way I can trim it to fit exactly the way that I want it to. So we're going to go ahead and start cutting it now. I've got that piece cut out. Looks like it matches up pretty good, so I'm pretty happy with that. So now we'll go and let's test fit it in the car here and see what this looks like. Try to get myself set up here. Alright, that doesn't look half bad. Gonna have a little trimming to do. It's overlapping a little bit down at the bottom here, so I'm just gonna have a little bit of work to do, but I think that is a good start. Making a little progress here. As you can see, I just about have this thing ready to go. I got some magnets on the other side that's holding that in place, otherwise it would pretty much fall through there. But there's a couple little edges yet I want to trim to make it right, and then this thing is ready to be welded in. So I got that patch all welded in. I'm going to have to look at it from the other side and probably find a couple pinholes that need to be filled in yet. So here it is on the outside of that firewall. And I have a light laying inside the car so that way you can see the little pinholes that I have left. Well, dress those welds and throw a little primer and paint on, and I think this firewall is done. Having to cut this section here out and make that piece and graft those together. Then of course I got to cut this pan out. So just cut this piece out of the old trunk lid, So it already had a curve in it. I bent it just a little bit more. But this is going to match the curve in the floor for the piece we need to replace. So the next thing I need to do is to draw out where the beads are going to go. And I have a piece of old cutout that has the right length, or I should say the width for those. So we're going to use our bead roller here to be able to create that. But after I take a couple quick measurements, we're going to run a couple beads in this. So as you can see, I drew the lines on there where this is going to go. This is what our beads basically should look like. So what we're going to do with our bead roller, as you can see right now I have it sitting up so that way I can fit the metal in there. So we'll get it in, I'll let this fall down, I'll turn the set screw down onto it to tighten it up, and we'll start rolling these beads. Sometimes I wish I had more hands here. Alright, so then we got the crank here, so we're going to roll that. Pull that out. I want to see if those dies are touching each other, which they are. So that's as deep as I'm going to be able to get this. That's that paint coming off. You can see the bead on there. So that's one. Now to the other side. Also, when you're doing this, you want to make sure you don't get your fingers in there. It does hurt. Unfortunately, I found that out one time. Make sure, over that path a little bit more, just to make sure. Okay, not too bad. Let's compare that to the one from the car. Of course, I can't get them to line up right now because of that curve, but I think I got that pretty close. I'm pretty happy with that. And again, with this curve that's in here from the trunk lid, that's going to let that fit into the floor. So next we'll do some test fitting. So here we are with the other part of this floor that we want to replace. And this being the piece that we just made the beads in. Again, old trunk lid. I think that is going to match up pretty well. So I am going to hold that there. Strike a line. And then I'll make that lip on there. So you'll get to see that process here next. Now look at that. I think this end is spot welded down in there. That it is. So I'm going to have to do a little, because I'm not going to be able to see where the, well, that might be a spot weld. I might be able to drill that out. Otherwise I can just get in there with the air chisel. Air chisel. Just have a little piece I can cut through down here originally. There it is. Now I'll cut the rest of that floor out. This is that support piece that I wanted to retain because it's actually pretty solid. Now you can kind of get a sense how this is getting closer to fitting into place. So a little bit more modification here. Get this panel good and cleaned up. Clean the back side of this and get some paint on that so it'll be ready to go. Figure out where these are going to be so that when I sit that down I can spot weld through this to that. So this will have to be cleaned, painted with weld through primer down on this end. So making progress here. You can tell when it hits the rust because it'll start to foam up. I still have more floors that will end up having to be removed from here. I got a lot of rot that's down in this space, but as you can see, I'm doing it in stages to work my way back through here and only take out what I really feel I'm going to have to take out. If I had a full reproduction panel, it would be completely different. I would take out everything in here and then fit the new panel into it. But well, after giving it a couple days, allowing that etch to do its job, I think it's done a pretty good job on that. It's helped to stabilize that rust. And what I did then afterwards is I came back through, cleaned off some of these areas of metal, where we're going to be welding, that is, so I had to have clean metal. Here's the pan that we made. I painted the back side of it. You can see I made an outline of where this support is. So I drilled holes in all of those, and that's where we're going to spot weld this back in. So when this is welded down in here, I can weld through each of these holes, and that'll hold that to that support. So that's what's going to re-strengthen that. But before I do that, all those areas with the bare metal, I'm going to use this weld-through primer, so that way it's all protected, but I can still weld on that. And then I'm going to spray paint the other areas back in here just to help to continue to protect that. I was using this on my Jeep project, and it's worked out very well. In fact, I have no problem getting my arc to start with that. Alright, so I'm going to let that set up, and then we're going to weld this thing in. Finished with the tack welding. Now I'll go around and I'll keep putting in tacks in between those, and then when I get that closed up, then I'll finally go ahead and do some bead welding like I did on this other side. And I'm spreading that out like that, so that way I'm not putting heat all in one place and causing a lot of expansion and contraction, so I don't want to warp those panels. '78 Pontiac four-door. Pulled out the carpet, and parts of this floor pan look better than the one I currently have. So I think I'm going to go ahead and get it. So I already started a chisel hole over there on that other side, so with the Sawzall, I'm going to start making my way around. Now I have this other part of the floor that I want to end up replacing, and here's the one that I cut out of the car in the junkyard. So I'm going to have to do some trimming on this piece, and but first I'm going to actually clean it up. It's a little bent right now because when I was trying to get it out of there, I had to bend it to, I didn't have a spot weld cutter, so I had to hit those apart with a chisel. So I kind of deformed the panel a little bit, so I'll need to make some repairs. But it's got a lot of undercoating on the underside, so I'm actually going to throw this in my parts cleaning tank, and that'll soften all that up. This stuff will just literally just rub right off of there. Here is that same panel after about 12 hours soak in the parts washer. All the undercoating that was on here, in a matter of hours, when you soak it like that, it literally just wipes right off. So cleaned up very nice. I'm pretty happy with this panel. The opposite side, it doesn't look too bad. It had surface rust on it. I just basically threw it in my blast cabinet and just dusted it quickly just to knock off a little bit that was there. So I'm satisfied with that. It's clean enough for me to make my cuts and get everything right, and then I'll finish cleaning it up to weld it in. I think that's just about right. A little bit of tweaking, and we'll have this. To make a copy of this piece of the floor. So you see me cut a piece of it out of the trunk lid, the old trunk lid. So now it is time to do a little bending. So here's our piece. We'll mark off our first bend. Good old dustpan. It's a nice straight edge, so it works. So I got that. This isn't going to be anything high detailed. It's not going to be seen. It's going to be under the carpet. So I want it fixed. I want it fixed decently, but it don't need to be perfect. Now with that in, I'll just pull that up. Probably would have helped if I would have had another clamp in the center, but it's getting what I need. There's a slight, they basically go not quite a 90 degree, it's kind of at an angle and another angle, so that's what I'm trying to recreate here. So I'm not going for a full 90 degree bend, although I got it pretty darn close to a 90 degree bend. I'm going to go test fit it in the car here and double check for my next bend. So we had to change things up here. In order to get the bend that I need, I can't use my nice little bending tool. So I'm just using 2 pieces of angle iron and stuck this on my line, and then we'll see what we can do to bend this. Okay, this isn't going to be the best way to do it, but I'm going to use my body hammer. I'm not going to hit on this edge. Obviously I can't hit on the straight edge that I have. I'm going to be trying to hit where this bend is and just tap along and see if I can get this to start to bend downward. Got it apart. Again, I just had one piece of angle iron on top of another one. I think that's going to be pretty close to what I have in the car, because this one end is tracing down a little bit, so I should be able to open that up a little bit. I wanted to bend it a little bit further than I think I need, because it's going to be a lot easier to straighten it out than to put it back in and keep bending on it. So I'm going to go test with this and we'll make up for the next bend. There we go. Now I'm going to have to cut the length so it'll fit in there properly, and then cut off some of this extension that I got, and I should have it pretty close. So now we're ready to test fit. Here's our piece. I don't think that's too bad. I think just a little bit more finagling. I made this edge just a little bit taller than I needed, but I think that's okay. Alright, then I'm going to trace the outline, start cutting things out of here, and then I'm going to weld this piece in here since that's pretty rotted. And then when that piece is welded in, then the rest of our floor pan will be able to go into place and weld all that up. And then this passenger side front floor pan will be done. Getting ready to weld that plate in there, and thought I'd show you that I actually had to repair the floor support. Previous owner left a nice big hole in there from having bucket seats in the car at one time, so I took a steel plate and welded in there. So the next thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to hit the all that exposed metal with the weld through primer, and then I'm going to put that plate on. Well, with this panel done, I went ahead and prepped everything for the floor pan to go in here. So I've put down the weld through primer, and we're ready to sit this into place. I'm going to get below, I'm going to put some clamps on the seam that's over on the far end, and then we're going to start tacking this into place. So nearly finished this floor on the passenger side of the 75 Nova. As you can see, I got everything sealed up, or I should say everything welded in. And what I'm doing right now is just applying a rust stabilizer. Prior to that, I had just simply cleaned up all the welds and then sprayed all this with a rust dissolving solvent, so that way you can actually see that it used to be that brown down in here, and dissolved a lot of that rust. So I did a lot of that first. Then I'm applying this coating, and after this, then I will come across with a seam sealer, and then a final coat of paint, and this side will be done. So after all the sealing and then painting, here is the finished product. Of course, we started this project that we were going to make our own pans due to the fact that the repops, I'm not real happy with the repops. I'm trying to keep this in budget. I made a little bit of it, but most of this I was fortunate enough to find a car in the junkyard and cut out the pieces that I needed. One of the things I didn't show was part of the tunnel on this side was also pretty rotted, so I actually made another panel to put into that as well. So if you have a car that you cannot get reproduction panels for, my advice is try to find a parts car or junkyard that maybe has the pieces that you need. Otherwise, you're going to end up having to make them yourself. Bead Roller is very helpful. You can add strength to those panels. I could have made these flat, but again, since I had a source, I went ahead and used it. Of course, I got the panel on the other side that I'm going to end up having to do. This one's in pretty rough shape. So I found another yard that supposedly has a couple of these, so I'm going to go take a look at those hopefully in the next few days. But I think this is going to finish up this video. I'm pretty satisfied with the results. Got a couple patches to it, but overall I think it's going to be sturdy and do what it needs to do. Thanks for watching.